All right, and welcome to the Grand Study. We are shooting another video on Marcus Aurelius, and I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Mr. Schmidt because this is our fourth video, and go to it.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are excited because God, this Marcus Aurelius and Meditations is just fantastic. And if you want to explore why, just continue to join us. It really helps every individual to become a better individual. In this part, we just wrapped up with how he went. I say at length. It seems like it's at length because every single line that he wrote about the benefits he got from his father, you could just think about and ponder ad nauseum. And now Marcus is going on to give thanks to the gods, and which I find interesting because all ages have their gods, and he wanted to also give he thanked the gods for all the people in his life, which means that he had a very thankful personality, maybe it was a learned behavior, and it certainly probably was a learned behavior, but he was genuinely thankful, and he was thankful for nearly everything good, which I love that. He specifically wrote, I'm thankful to the gods for nearly everything good, presuming that he meant some credit belongs to other people, including himself, because we can either make things good or ill by our own intent, by our own attitudes, by the way we see things. Your intake, sir?
You know, it's interesting because now I'm caught back up on my notes of where we're at. I had a little tricky situation there getting started. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, now you have to go back to, again, the gods and how they worship the gods in his day. They didn't operate on a one god system. So they had multiple gods, and the way they saw their gods was more of acts of nature and forces that move the world through their wills. So he's thankful to the gods for putting those things in his path, those people in his path. Now, what they did with those people in their path were all up to them. So he's thanking the gods for putting those people into places where he could meet and interact with them. And then he did the rest on their own, and the other people did the rest on their own. And it comes together that he's thankful for all the things that they did do, but he's also taken responsibility for himself, and he's taken responsibility for the other people in his life that did things to help him out, like his father, his grandfather, and even people that he had disagreements with, like Rusticus. But he was also really good friends with them, and he's mentioned in his book to a large thank you to him.
Sure, and he did not agree with his humor. Their humors did not match. But it doesn't matter because he enjoyed what he learned from him, which is just great. He was thankful. As he goes on to say the credit belongs to the gods, except this sliver, which probably belongs to himself and others, that he was thankful that he waited and preserved the flower of his youth. His fertility. I found that really striking in that age that a man that could have anything, any woman, or any man, whatever his preference may be, he waited. He purposely said, hey, I'm saving the flower of my youth. I have other things to be doing. That's kind of the implied notion. I'm busy. I have to learn. I have to study. I have to be physical. I have to learn how to be me. I just thought that was a fascinating point that everything is it's not quite a bullet point of the different things that he learned from people. But this one was just kind of a few that he was proud of. Like he had to make a point to say, it was stressful, it wasn't easy. He didn't explicitly say that, but that's kind of what he was saying, is that was a difficult thing, but I'm very glad I saved up that pent up energy so I could learn something else.
You know, that's a tough situation to be in, and I'm sure that he's put that in his book. for other young men that are going through the same thing to say, look, you can save and wait for the proper time to do these things, the proper season, is which he says.
Sure. Yeah, it is not an easy task. I mean, all young men, especially young men, because you're just packed full of hormones. And I think that the god or gods that be play tricks on the hearts and minds of men and women, because it happens to men at an early age. It happens to women as they get older. It's just kind of a funny sort of yin and yang thing that happens. And you cannot help but laugh. But I'm glad because it doesn't stay on that subject for long. It just goes on to how he was proudful. He was prideful of that. And then it just instantly jumps into, I'm glad my father took my pride away. You know, everybody is guilty of having pride. Everybody is guilty of being prideful. And to have a figure in your life that can strip that away without causing negative ramifications for the remainder of your life. I mean, it goes on to say something very positive about the person being stripped of pride, and very positive of the person who did the stripping. It's that's tough to do. Can you imagine stripping away all the pride from your son?
You know, I'm not sure it's meant that way. I think it's meant more of like when you go into a deep meditation and you have that ego death of the meditation, that you're taking away your ego, that he's saying to your son that you're not better than these people, that don't be prideful in this way. You should not have those thoughts. Don't judge people. I think he's saying, you know, he took away his pride, that he took away all the things that of him in his station. Don't put your station into those things. See, everyone is equal, so you can interact with people from the lowest of stations to the highest of stations and anywhere in between. Don't let your ego, don't let your pride get in the way of those things. So I think when he's saying he strips him of his pride, he has that, don't let that ego get in the way. But you're going to have to deal with foreign dignitaries. You're going to have to deal with lesser people. You're going to have to deal with greater people. Don't let your pride get in the way of you making a deal. Don't let your pride get in the way of things that are bigger than you.
For a father, for a son to say, my father stripped those things away, I think he did exactly what you said. He taught him that, well, as we read in the last and discussed in the previous videos, is that you will mingle with these people. You will learn how to live and not be prideful, but to strip it away. He had to be forceful about it, because all men are stubborn. All men have this wall, and all people do, and just in general. That as you grow up and you are in a palace, you're the big boy. You know, well, he didn't necessarily know, but you know you have some influence. Your father is an influential person. Everyone around you is somewhat powerful. And to have someone who is teaching you things that are outside of the norm, and you can see it. You can actually see it, because there are other people not living and thinking just like you. Because there was only Marcus Aurelius. The people around him at the time were not like Marcus Aurelius. I would have to say, except some of his immediate circle. It's tough to have guys like Maximus around. You know, like without you, we have a pretty small circle. And I'm not comparing us to Marcus Aurelius or Maximus, but I'm saying for us to explore ideas and such, you need other people that think about ideas. And that is just good for him. I was just grateful that he was recognizing that his father didn't damage him, he improved him with stripping his pride. And he was grateful that he learned not to be in fear. You know, everybody has fear. Everybody fears all the time. Just look at what's happened in the past year and a half. somebody says something, I'm so fearful. I'm so overweight. I am about to die because I have diabetes. I have heart congestion. I have all these things, but oh my God, that person over there is not wearing their mask. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Well, fear sells. It's a really good marketing campaign. I mean, fear is the heart to get anybody to do anything you want. Fear is at the heart of it. We can look a couple centuries forward and go to Machiavelli. Is it greater to be loved or feared? While you'd want to have both in one person, it's much safer to be feared than loved.
Oh, it's sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I just thought it was great that he was grateful that he learned not to be in fear, that he did not need guards in the palace, that is. Yeah, did not even want guards. He wanted to, and do not dress just in such an ostentatious way that he would cause such great attention to himself for wearing all the finery and the jewels and brooches and the whatever. I just thought that was great that he learned not to like those, or maybe never liked them. Good for him. And he thanks the God. He continues on just thanking the gods, and he thanks the gods for his brother. And this is where I instantly thought of you, even though I have other brothers and I like some of them and still like the other ones in a different way. He thanks the gods for his brothers, who he was able, by his brother's moral character, helped him. It helped him, and I just thought that was great that he had somebody of blood right immediately around him, as his own words say, was able by moral character to rouse me to vigilance over myself, and it pleased me by his respect and affection. To have affection and respect by someone who gives you a higher understanding of yourself is just like being cold outside and you're sleeping in this wonderful warm blanket. It's nice. It just feels good.
I think a lot of people would like to have that connection with their siblings. However, I don't think it often works out. So I think for Marcus to acknowledge that not only did he have that with his brother, but he continued to culture it and nourish it through the entirety of his life, and his brother did the same. I think that's where a lot of people miss on that. They want to have that connection with their brother, or they want to have that connection with their sibling, but they don't want to put in necessarily the work for it. Because, everybody changes, and are you going to change together, or are you going to change apart from somebody? Sounds like him and his brother were a lot like us. We've gone through different changes in our life already. Just think of our dietary change for one instance.
That's so funny you just said diet, because I just first thought you were crazy when you stopped eating meat, and now I can't stand meat. It's just that.
You get to some of these points in your life and you see, like we talked about in one of our other videos, you have these friends, and Marcus says, don't get rid of your friends. But sometimes it does come to a head when you start changing, you buck something they find fundamentally, at their core, and you start to buck that. Most people don't have, their foundation is not to support the ideas they have. It's a shaky foundation anyway. So when somebody starts to rock those pillars, hey, you better back off or I'm going to, do something. So to have someone in your life that y'all can shake each other's pillars, you can test the foundation and y'all can play off that, that's something that's really big. And, people want that, but they don't go and put forth the effort for it.
Well, I think this goes into his next point, that I think most people are afraid of that because of what would happen if Marcus Aurelius was here right now and he said, thank you to the gods because my children were not stupid nor deformed. I think people would be really offended by that in our let's call it for what it is. It's a pussified society. Everybody is so thin-skinned. Everything offends everybody. But he was really thankful that, no matter what, there are some stupid people. There are some arrogant people. There are some really smart people. There are all types of people. And one label or another gets, oh, you know, what it used to be retarded was fine. That was never offensive to anybody. Then it got changed to something else, and then changed to something else, changed to something else. All we're doing is changing language, but we're not changing what we're saying.
Yeah, but if you control the language, you control the people. So if you control the language and you say you cannot use these words, then you're putting limitations on people. And that's where it starts. You get a whole bunch of people on board. No, you can't say that word anymore.
Oh, it's so offensive to that other group. Or, oh, it offends me because you offended them. Oh, God.
Well, see, no, it starts with the language. You can't say that. Then you can't go there. Then after you can't go there, you can't do that. And then now you need more walls and borders and guards and security and a larger police state. And then you need more taxes to pay for these things.
Right. You need more Title IXs and everything else. You need all these things everywhere. Everywhere. All this nonsense. Just all of it.
But one thing I did find interesting about that statement that his kids weren't stupid. I think a lot of people out there that know Marcus Aurelius would say, well, he probably erred on Commodus a little bit. I think Commodus is still a smart guy. He just made poor decisions, and he didn't have his father's mental fortitude. And when he wanted something, he was more apt to take it. He had a more adventurous streak. He wasn't just willing to sit behind the lines like his father on campaign. He wanted to go to the gladiatorial pits, and he, died in there.
He did. Well, I thought it was great that he was thankful. In his next observation of himself, I'm not sure if he got it right or wrong, because he was thankful for not having a proficiency in poetry and rhetoric or studies that he would be engaged in too much. Well, he was engaged in writing and learning, and perhaps he wasn't engaged a lot in poetic notions, but it's obvious he is a thoughtful romantic. He is spilling out a rhetoric here that's not really rhetoric so much as, but it's sort of rhetoric, sort of not. That's why it's he's on the fence line here. He's like, oh, come on. I don't want you guys to think I'm this Pollyanna poetry reader over here, but at the same time, I'm gonna go ahead and poetically line out everything in Meditations.
Well, I think that he thought of himself as that he was a ruler first, and he had to take care of himself and his people. And these were his little side hobbies. He didn't think of himself as a poet. He thinks of a poet as someone that spends their whole life doing something for the sole purpose of entertainment. This book was not meant to go out to the masses. Poets, their work is meant to go out to the masses, whether it be through plays, through the Colosseum adventures, through, just a reader on the city square telling a poem. He didn't see himself as that person. He saw himself as first a ruler to take care of his people. And, this is just something else he did.
I think he did see himself as a philosopher king.
I think he did see himself as a philosopher king. Well, just in this part of the book, he's spent how many times saying something about philosophy? 4 or 5 times making a good point of philosophy, even thinking to the gods that he didn't fall in with the sophits of philosophy.
Yeah, I'm just really saddened that we don't have a thinking Marcus Aurelius type leader today. Instead, we always have the worst of two evils every time. That's why I decided not to vote anymore, ever.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think the people that you vote for and the people that are running the show are two separate entities.
Oh, well, that's for sure. Yeah, for sure. But they're all the same.
So when we talk about the leaders that aren't thoughtful and things, I don't necessarily know that that's not.
That's why we are here as well. We don't delve into the whole political notion of things. However, I think it damages the spirituality of mankind by having such poor choices in everything.
Well, in Marcus Aurelius, he does mention not to follow either the red or the green party or the blue or the green party in the Colosseum events or in this political square. Don't follow this group or that group.
But we don't go into that a lot because and nor do we preach that or go into politics and to a large degree. We're just reading Marcus Aurelius' meditation because there are strict rules by our overbearing government that prevent and restrict us from talking about politics in church because it changes the status of your organization. And that is once again why city-states may not be such a bad idea. But we don't talk about that. So thanks, government. He admits that he falls short. He falls short. I think that we all fall short. I fall short all the time, and I just laugh at myself.
You know, that's actually quite big of someone because, especially in today's society, it's so easy to blame someone else for your shortcomings. Oh, I didn't do that because, this, or, the odds are stacked against me. I didn't really have a chance, to actually take ownership of your mistakes, of where you fall short. It's a big deal. And not everyone can do it. As a matter of fact, people watching at home, 99.99% of the people in your life cannot own up to the times that they have fallen short, and you probably can't either. You can look back and see, well, I didn't do that. And then you can probably have a good excuse of why that didn't happen. And your first reason of why it didn't happen is probably not going to be, I didn't try hard enough. I didn't do this. It was going to be, this got in my way. I was going to do this and this happened.
Yeah, I didn't mean to raise my voice, but you caused me to, or, something along those lines. He was also thankful he lived according to nature. And I think, shouldn't we also think that way? Shouldn't we not separate ourselves from nature, who we are a part of, obviously? Everyone, the majority of these people who live in these major cities have no connection to nature, or very little at least. They like to think that they do in their apartments or penthouses or wherever they may be, and they got a potted plant and they think, oh, I'm connected. I think we have so detached ourselves from who and what we are as humans that he recognized that even back then, which is pretty profound. And so do we think, and he's actually saying we should live according to nature and use nature. And so if you applied his principles today, wouldn't that suggest we would be against Big Pharma?
You would think so. But that does not seem to be the case. But the vast majority of people have not read this book. This is not doctrine that's put out in all public schools. Now health class is put out in all public schools that you should take this. If you get sick, you need to take this. That's not, nature is not taught in schools.
I love how he says we need to depend on God's inspiration, his help, and his gifts. And, if you've meditated at all, I know some atheists that meditate, and they have an experience, and they attribute it to, their own mental state. But they have I haven't met one yet that can really describe it as something that wasn't outside of themselves. Like there's some other connection. There's something there. No matter what your belief system, there's something. And that he recognized that there's some form of energy that has inspired him to do different things. And he has gotten help from his gods from whenever he was thoughtful, whatever God it was. And you could say the same thing about Muslim, Jews, Christianity, everyone in all of those, not say everyone, every one of those religions. There are many groups of people inside there that they have gotten some sort of epiphany, some sort of inspiration from being inside that group. And fine, but is it what you were thinking about, or, well, that goes into a whole other subject. But I just thought it was great that he was acknowledging that he probably got inspiration and help from something else, and that he was thankful for an obedient, affectionate, and simple wife.
Yeah, that's
You're welcome. You have Ashley.
a good wife they're hard to come by.
Except the obedient part. I don't know if obedient's so good.
Yeah, well, it was a different time. The obedient might have meant something different. I mean,
Well, we changed the definition.
yeah, of course, we control words, we control people, we can make it whatever we want.
Ashley, I think Trey is obedient. No words. Ashley is shy for the camera.
Yeah, she's saying I'm staying off the camera. She's saying y'all get back to your little book.
Well, I do think you have to be appreciative of your spouse, especially if they are affectionate and caring. And I think it's good to be simple. I think even you and I are guilty of going a little overboard with just about everything, whether it's self-defense, whether it's reading, whether it's working out, whether it's raising your son, whether it's being involved with, like for me example, with my practically adopted boys. Maybe being simple is kind of a little bit better thing to do.
Yeah, like I've said just between us a lot of times, is overkill is barely enough for us on so many
Levels, and it's something that we personally struggle with. Both of us do.
Yeah, maybe simple's better. I've tried to downsize some things and be more simple, and that's a lot harder than it sounds.
Oh man, it's so difficult.
It's so much easier to just go all in all the time.
Well, I do hope that your son is able to be thankful for this. He was thankful for good masters. And he was thankful for good masters of his children. To have good masters over here, what he was saying was he had good people running and scheduling his life, teaching him right things. I think that is great. Well, that's because he'll probably be hanging around his uncle as he grows up into a man. 10 years from now or something, maybe 18. That would be a good time I can start visiting with him more.
Maybe. He might grow up and be a man like, I don't know, in 2 or 3 weeks.
Just kidding. See, I'm just picking. I'm trying to get a rise for you to talk on camera. So we have Marcus Aurelius, and this is one of his last points before going into his section 2, is he did not waste time, and this is, I don't think was correct. I think he's kind of stretching the truth, maybe. He did not waste his time on writers of history or investigate the appearances in the heavens. Yes and no. I mean, of course he was a studier of history, but maybe at the same time he realized that a lot of the historians were stretching the truth for the victorious, like they do now and have always done. So, that's a double-edged sort of thing. Like you have to know history, and you have to explore it and investigate it, especially as emperor. But he said he didn't waste his time on that. So,
I've thought about that a lot, and I think maybe more of what he was trying to say is all the historical tales of their heroes through Greek and Roman mythology that a lot of people saw, Odysseus' journey as facts, or the facts of Achilles or Hercules or Heracles. All these people would have been a historical doctrine during the time, and I think maybe he's saying that he didn't waste so much time and effort with those stories.
he could have been. He didn't write it. At least he was better explaining this than you get in a lot of the religious text. But he does give us an understanding that he did not investigate the appearances in the heavens. That doesn't say that he was not admiring and appreciative of its beauty. He just didn't spend a lot of time investigating the whole nature of the thing. Like, it's fine, because I don't really either. I lay out underneath the stars quite often, and I just find them fascinating. I just like to daydream underneath them, and which will be another topic of why dreamers in the Western civilization are frowned upon, which dreamers should be applauded. But anyway, Mr. Schmidt, do you have anything left? Because the next book is going to go into, our next episode goes into the second part of Meditations, which will probably go along a little bit more speedier than getting through the first 5 or 6 pages of Marcus Aurelius' first part.
You know, like I said in the beginning, is you can really write a doctoral thesis on so much of just what's in just the first part of the first page. And then there's so many self-exercises that you can go into, thanking the people that are in your life, writing down what they mean to you, you know, exploring what he meant as the gods or stories or the bodies in the heavens. You know, you can spend a lot of time just exploring those things that we haven't done here because, you know, you don't want to hang around for a 15-hour lecture. Or maybe you do, so, you know, you can keep watching. We'll put out a 15-hour lecture one day.
Well, I'm pretty sure we will. But I just thank Marcus Aurelius. I'm thankful for Marcus Aurelius for pointing out to me some of the things that were so pronounced just in the first part thus far. You know, just a quick example before we sign off is that I have some people around me at this very moment that I have spent some time with recently writing down why they are beneficial to me, what have I learned from them, what have I have attempted to convey to them, what do I see as a positive from me to them. And I just think that is just an invaluable exercise. It really helps. And it helps you to see maybe some people you should shed off. That's just great. You know, if you find this type of discussion fascinating, please join us. We're going to be jumping right into it next time, and our other videos on the exploration of the Old Testament.
And have a good day.